One of the worst things you could ever do is give birth to a new child called a business and then suffocate it, because you're going to kill it.
Brian Adamson, mentor, man of God, and founder of BBR Education Group,
who has committed his life to helping people change theirs.
I always believed in God. I remember even when I was in the streets, I walk in, if I had a couple thousand on me, I would put a couple hundred in church. I think people use God as a prop. Like, people can quote scripture backward and forward, been in the church 30, 40 years, but they broke.
Yeah.
That ain't the God we serve. It's hard to discipline yourself. One, when you don't love yourself enough. And two, when you lack vision of where you're trying to go. Like, why would you tell yourself no if you don't know what your yes is? The problem with a why is that it's got to be real. Otherwise, you won't persevere when it gets tough. And I've identified that my why is me. My daughter walked around with trauma for 10 years and associated everything I did as it pertains to work as a bad thing because she needed me in that moment in a different way that I wasn't there. If you could find some work to pay bills and be fully present in your family's life, then that's the work you should be doing. Your job should be your first business partner. Like, the best time to look for a plan B is while you got a plan A.
What are the biggest myths about real estate that you've discovered over time?
First of all, there's no such thing as passive income in real estate. And everybody typically collects the check before the owner does. On the coach's side, the most important piece is identifying.
Brian, welcome to the Attractive Mindset Podcast, man. You know, you're a stand-up guy. We had conversation before we even started the podcast and everything. And, you know, in the short amount of time, got to know a lot about you. And man, I can tell your mindset is on a whole different level. And so for the people that don't know who you are, you know, can you introduce yourself real quick?
Absolutely. Appreciate you having me, Rich.
Yes, sir.
I'm Brian Adamson. I like to say that I'm a guy that helps people live their life by design rather than by default. Right? I think for many people, based on the social economic construct or wherever they originated from, they adopt these ideologies and belief systems that causes them to default into more of what they see as opposed to design and desire the life that they actually want for themselves. And so I've been able to do that effectively through helping people with real estate, whether it be residential or commercial multifamily. I help coaches and consultants scale their coaching and consulting businesses as well. So just into service at the end of the day. I got a community called Believers in Business where I help people get stronger in their faith, fitness, finance, and freedom.
Nice.
You know, so it's interesting that God just utilized a lot of my life's trials and tribulations, and businesses have been birthed out of them organically, in which I get to serve people and help them go and build the lives and construct the lives that they actually want for themselves.
Nah, that's amazing. You know, and so that makes me want to unpack a whole lot. You know, this is where we get to the most difficult part, is where to start, because in a journey like that, like, I can tell even from you saying that, because, you know, the ability to help people on that kind of level comes from somewhere. And so where are you from originally?
I'm from Detroit originally.
Okay. And in Detroit, you know, what kind of life was Detroit like for you?
So my father was a firefighter for 30 years for the city of Detroit. My mom was a cashier at a grocery store for 25 years. So work ethic was ingrained in me from a young age, blue collar family, the whole nine. But since about the age 12, I knew that I was going to be a money guy. That meant something totally different to me then than it does now. But nonetheless, like, I always had an infatuation for my own money. I started sweeping up here in the barbershop when I was 12, working at the Boys and Girls Club at 14, shoe stores at 16. And then I jumped off the porch because the people that I thought had the money and lifestyle that I aspired to have was the ones in the streets. So, you know, I went and emulated that lifestyle, found myself my senior year in high school looking at a 4 to 10 year felony, caught a case. I had a full ride academic scholarship to college. I got up there, distracted, flunked out, lost that. My now wife, then girlfriend, met her at that time, got her pregnant. So that transition from 17 to 18 was wild for me. It was a dark place in my life. I really believed that I was going to hell if I ain't changed some things. And found my way back into the church, found Christ during that time. And, you know, internally, I can't really articulate what happened, but externally, I got rematriculated back into college. That case I was fighting got fully expunged. I never went to prison. My then girlfriend, now wife. We've been together for 20 something years. We've been married 17. We got a beautiful 21-year-old daughter who down in Georgia doing her thing, you know what I mean? And by his grace, you know what I'm saying? And so the starting point was very unique in the sense that when you aspire to want more, but you don't have an avatar of what that more that you aspire to look like, then you will, and I can't make this for everybody else, but in my particular case, then I glean from the people that I saw that had the aspirational lifestyle and, you know, took my stab at trying to pursue and obtain those same things through the same ways in which they did.
Got it. No, that's wow. And so what do you feel like was the shift for you in not wanting to follow the footsteps of your parents, even though they were hardworking individuals?
I couldn't deny what I felt internally. And it's still there now. I tell people that a lot of the time, especially when you go to seminars and such, and they ask like, what's your why? And people get up on the mic, and if they pass it around 10, 12 people, you kind of start to hear the same sentiments echo. I think particularly because people, they don't want to sound stupid. But the problem with a why is that it's got to be real. Otherwise, you won't persevere when it get tough. And I've identified that my why is me. God put something on the inside of me that won't allow me to be okay with mediocrity. And unless or until I'm getting up every day and I feel like I'm putting points on the board, I'm depressed. Now, my wife and my daughter are the direct beneficiaries of me pursuing my why, but I got to first be clear about what my why is so that everybody else can then benefit, because my wife wasn't in my life at 12. My daughter wasn't in my life at 12. That thing been in me, and I've identified with it since I was 12 years old, that is something there that just always want more. And I was never a product of my environment. I was a product of the choices that I made in my environment. And some of those weren't so good, but I believe in scripture, Romans 8:28, that says all things work together for the good of those that love him and been called according to his purpose. And I see now how God has even repurposed times in my life where I was living inconsistent and incongruent with how he desired for me to live. But those same gifts show up in a different arena. And what I would call influence now was manipulation before. Same gift, just perverted in the wrong environment. And so I'm just consciously aware that, like, if everybody can look back into times in their life where they may have been effective even at the wrong things, that's a gift nonetheless. You just need to seek and figure out how to repurpose that for his glory and for your good.
No, absolutely. And that makes me think of something super controversial, which is a topic that I feel like should be talked about more. And it feels to me, you know, I grew up a 7-day Adventist, super in church, you know, all of that. And it feels to me that people use church nowadays as an escape. And through that escape, they say, I let go and I let God. But how plausible is that? Because I know I can't say the verse name, but faith without works is dead.
Yes, sir. And
so in you putting your trust back into, you know, the belief, the trust, you know, the church, the, you know, God, everything, you know, how efficient was it for you to execute still?
One of the biggest things that I realized was, one, I always believed in God, right? As a matter of fact, I always been a tither even before I came to Christ. Just growing up in like small Baptist church on the corner when I was a kid, I enjoyed that part in the service where they bought that little storehouse out, you know what I'm saying? And you go drop your envelope in it. And I never understood why. I think it all was synonymous with the fact that he had put a seed in me to be a money guy. So I just always had an infatuation for that. And then I remember even when I was in the streets, I walk in, if I had a couple thousand on me, I would put a couple hundred in church. Like, I know some may judge me from having this conversation now, but I'm being real with you. Like, I always just believed it was from him, regardless of what I was doing to get it. I always felt like I was blessed. And I've been tithing for a couple of decades in result of it. And I still feel like by honoring him with my first fruits, that's been why he's kept me in seasons of depletion, as well as he's kept me and bolstered me in seasons of excess. But I just say that to just show one principle that I've always followed, right? As it pertains to him and my walk with him. To your point, faith without works is dead. And one of the biggest reasons why I think it's hard for believers to have the full experience of what God intends is because we don't really live a life that he told us to live. I was guilty of that myself where, I was a tither, but I was a everything else. You know what I mean? Like I was really what he would describe in James as a lukewarm Christian. And, I was partying, you know what I'm saying? And praying, partying and praying. And because I always felt like God was important, but I also felt like some things in my life were important. Drinking, one of them, right? That this was the way in which I enjoyed myself, had a release and an outlet, but it was the biggest distraction and interrupter in me and his relationship. And I didn't realize it until I finally stopped drinking 5-6 years ago. So I think the more congruent that we live with the way in which that he tells us in the Bible, then we start to feel the real fullness of it. Because I agree with you. I think people use God as a prop. I think they hide behind church much of the time. Like people can quote scripture backward and forward, been in the church 30, 40 years, but they broke.
Yeah.
That ain't the God we serve. That means that somewhere in that Bible, you're not applying everything. You're only applying the things that make you feel good and superior to judge everybody else on. But the things that convict you most, that may be most challenging, like you investing in yourself and you have enough faith to put seed in the ground and not knowing when it's going to come back. You doing those things, and or your broke pastor in the pulpit that knows nothing about money, that can't teach you nothing about money, don't preach nothing about money. So only thing that they talking about is you giving money to the church. Short of that, they can't show you how to get none. So I think it's just layers within that construct where pastors and people and parishioners lean based off of what their desire is and their comfort level is. Because, one thing we don't talk about in the church is obesity, or i.e. gluttony, which is also a sin. But we talk about being a drunkard and we talk about murder and adultery and all those things, but you standing over there and you obese, but you don't talk about that because you obese, right? So, and I'm not judging nobody. Like I was 60 pounds overweight at one point in my life, and I identify as to why that was too, though, right? Because it's hard to discipline yourself, one, when you don't love yourself enough, and two, when you lack vision of where you're trying to go. Like, why would you tell yourself no if you don't know what your yes is? And so, if you're gonna be a communicator from the front of the room in the church and leading the people, we gotta talk about those things in which and where we fall short, and be open, honest, and transparent that I'm a work in progress in these areas, and these areas I feel more solid to talk about because I've been through the trial and I've come on the other side with some fundamentals that I think, along with scripture and context, can help you. But let me not dupe you into only getting you to look over here while I'm doing this over here.
No, that makes perfect sense. You said you didn't love yourself enough. When somebody's in that realm, from your perspective, what does that look like for you? Or what did that look like for you?
One, you looking to fill voids that you can't explain, and so you settle for counterfeit at every turn. Now that the closer my relationship get with God, I understand that he is the ultimate void filler, right? As a matter of fact, as I feel those moments in these days, I ask for his spirit to invade me and fill those voids, right? So that I'm not then trying to settle for counterfeits and overeating or over drinking or, right, all these other things that we do to distract ourselves. Or in a lot of cases, just because we lack the awareness, we go to the thing that we think that gives us that intermittent relief.
Yeah.
Right. And then when you're in an environment that's conducive to support those behaviors, then if everybody's smoking weed and everybody drinking and everybody, in toxic relationships and all those other things that stimulate us, then that becomes your new normal. And it ain't nothing normal about it. Right. And so I think it's just important that we look inward to understand how are we really doing? Because when you can start to think about, like, bro, I never forget. So this was 2006. I was at my wife's apartment in college, and I knew like, 5 here, 10 there kind of cute. But then when it kind of got out of pocket because you've been buying clothes. It's like, man, I've got 40s. So what's going on? Right. So I get on the scale and it's like 208. I immediately got off the scale, put on a hoodie, and ain't never got off the treadmill since. This was 17 years ago.
Wow.
That was the number for me. I was like, oh, this is out of pocket. Like, I don't know why ain't nobody else told me. Like, people been joking, but somebody should have been serious with me. Like, bro, what's going on? Right? But that was a shift. That's when I knew that I started to care again. And it's so easy that your environment is so important because what you tune into, you turn into. And it's easier to acquiesce when you got a lot of mediocrity around you. You fall into that same type of behavior to justify your behavior. And that's a dangerous place to be in. So the reason why self-love is so important is because then and only then can you discipline yourself and audit your environment and understand that even if you got to go at it alone, it's still worth doing. But if you need the validation and adoration from others to help you fill those voids within you, then you're always going to acquiesce and go along with the bunch.
You mentioning that whole scenario, I can't help but think of a new movie that just came out. It's called Challengers. It's the tennis movie with Zendaya, and it's in theaters right now. And are you gonna watch it?
I haven't seen it, man. I saw the preview, but I haven't seen it though.
Do you want to watch it?
Depending on what you tell me about it.
You like spoiler?
I don't mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because by the time they see it, it might not be in theaters.
Okay.
But so the overall theme of the movie is two guys playing tennis, meet a tennis star who's a female, Zendaya, and they both fall in love with her. And she ends up hurting herself. She's no longer the tennis star, but they both still fight for her attention. She says, whoever wins the tennis match out of you two gets my number. And one guy won, and she chooses him. But then a specific moment happens later because he's not like 100% into it yet, but he's faithful. And the other guy is just constantly there, more consistent. And so him being there, her environment at that time where she's no longer this big tennis star anymore, and she's just somebody who's known in tennis at this point, she acclimates to him more and pushes the original guy away, and he disappears for a while. And so the guy who she now is with was never able to beat the original guy at tennis. And so they meet now in the future, 13, 14 years later. The Zendaya is married to the dude and has a kid now, but now the dude doesn't like tennis anymore. And she is trying to live tennis vicariously through him because she wanted to be super pro, professional, everything. And so the other guy, he's just I hit a racket for fun, live life on the edge kind of guy. But then he's like, oh, I enter this tournament and he's in this tournament, and they start fighting. And so she actually sleeps with him again, and that fires up the fuel between them. And she asks him, throw the game for my husband because I need him to get back into the game. Wow. I need him to understand the sport. From him understanding the sport, now they're having this intense match and it goes crazy, and they leave it on a cliffhanger because they make it tie point game, match point, and the husband hits the racket to a point where they're like this close to the net, and then he goes for a spike, and the whole crowd is like up, like ready, like anxious, and the guy sees the ball coming over, and this is where the cliffhanger inserts because the other guy is gonna hit the ball, but he's like, he jumped so high he's falling over the net, and so the guy looked like he was going to hit the ball back over, but he dropped the net and caught his friend, and they became friends again.
Wow.
And then the movie ends. And so it ends on that note. And so you don't know if he continues playing professional tennis after that, because in their match, you saw him getting the love back for the sport because you see how he played in other matches and whatnot. And so I said all of that to say the environment shaping of what you mentioned, of everything like that, like, it plays a big factor when it comes to business and life, because a lot of people aren't moving in their purpose. And because a lot of people aren't moving in their purpose, we find a lot of unfocused individuals, especially with you helping out coaches, consultants, a lot of these other things, a lot of these people, there's things that people do outside of a 9-to-5. A 9-to-5 is just the threshold. I personally tell people sometimes, go back to a 9-to-5.
Yeah.
And so what that makes me want to ask you is, do you tell people when they should quit?
I do. So I've been fortunate that I've seen both sides. When I got rematriculated back into college, while I started investing in real estate there, because I graduated in 2007 and I had I could see the shift, but I couldn't articulate it because I didn't have any education at that point as it pertained to real estate, just experience. That's a big difference between having education and experience.
100%.
And so I ended up going to work in corporate America for a plastics company. I was an operations manager. I did that for 10 years and was fortunate to walk away from there at 35. And I tell people a lot of the time, because we sensationalize fire your boss, quit your job. But the truth is, your job should be your first business partner. Like, the best time to look for a plan B is why you got a plan A.
100%.
And people need to start going to work and looking at their job as that, to then help to catapult the thing that they're trying to grow. One of the worst things you could ever do is give birth to a new child called a business and then suffocate it. Because you're going to kill it, just like you would a
100%.
child if you were to suffocate it. And what I mean by suffocating it is, let your job take care of your lifestyle and give your business room to grow and breathe and evolve and all those things, to where it becomes healthy enough to where then there's enough fruit for it to then start to take care of your lifestyle. And I think many entrepreneurs just make the mistake of jumping too soon. And because they're making a couple dollars in the business, they don't take into account what it looks like. It's a different anatomy when that business has to take care of everything, starting with the business first, then you personally, and then the business becomes your piggy bank. And before you know it, you and the business in a bad way.
Yeah. So, there's this gap in society where there's a world of entrepreneurs telling everybody that they should be entrepreneurs. And I don't truly believe in that, because not everybody's meant to be an entrepreneur, right. Especially not full time.
Yeah.
And I'm young myself. I'm only 31 going on 32, and I have been a full-time entrepreneur for a decade. A decade, and that's through certain seasons, certain times, before it was even cool to be an entrepreneur, already doing entrepreneurial kind of things. And so, this makes me think of shifts in the market. And so you said 2007. So of course, a major shift, 2008, and then we have, I would say, the next major one is the pandemic. And so how did those two big shifts shape your life and business?
I had a totally different perspective than most people when the 2008 thing happened. While I did have rental property at that time that had stated income loans that I bought from 2006 and 7, I did deed in lieu of foreclosure, short sale, all those things to get up from up under that bad debt back then. But I was like, man, this $148,000 house, 28 grand now. So my perspective was totally different. I'm like, I need to go do more of this. And in my market in Detroit at the time, I could get a property for, I think the cheapest house I bought back then was $2,500. Wow. That I ended up putting, I don't know, maybe $5,000-6,000 into, and was able to rent it out for $750 a month. So it's hard to miss during in those kind of times where I didn't understand. I didn't have enough bad debt to where I was scarred as many people were. Like, I know a lot of people lost their shirt for years after that. For me, I just licked my wounds and started buying more because I saw the opportunity differently.
Gotcha.
Fast forward, because I didn't get any mentorship until 2015. I had bought 20 rental properties when I was 24, 25 years old. And because of the condition of the market allowed me to do that. But I didn't understand roofing systems and electrical systems, mechanical systems, all the extreme nuance to real estate investing. So when these properties started having problems, I was illiquid. Neither did I have the skill of going out raising capital or knew that was even a thing back then. And so when all the big boys and girls started exiting their portfolios at the start of COVID, when this fictitious economy came about, that was a time in which I would have exited and made $2.6 million had I had the wherewithal and infrastructure to know how to maintain that portfolio back then. I ended up selling it off during the down market, 90% of it, just because I couldn't maintain it and refused to be a slumlord at that time.
Got it.
Yeah.
No, that's dope. And you being with your now wife the entire time, what is that relationship like with you from then to now?
It's man, I believe in coaching in every aspect of my life. One of the greatest gifts in my marriage was when we went to marriage coaching at a very difficult season a few years ago, right? And in that, we discovered things about ourselves that we didn't know about ourselves, even though we've been with each other all this time. And one of them was that on the Enneagram test, I scored 99 as a 3, which is an achiever, and a 96 as an 8, which is a challenger.
What is the Enneagram test?
It's a personality test.
Okay.
One of which is more, whoever designed it in a sense that it should give you your closest innate personality as it pertains to how God created you and wired you.
Got it.
And out of all the ones that I've taken, it's consistently doing that. Okay. My wife, on the other hand, takes the test and find out that she like a 90-some% as a 9, which a 9 is a peacemaker. So I'm heavy on the challenger achiever. She heavy on the peacemaker. So we having arguments that show up in different forms and anatomies over a 15, 20 year period where I think she procrastinating and deflective and she think I'm aggressive. When both of them are gifts, but because we were ignorant to identify them in each other, we weaponized both of them against each other.
Got it.
That was the biggest breakthrough in our marriage in the time that we've been together, by getting clear about who we are, who God innately wired us to be. And once we understood that, we knew exactly why he put us together. She gonna slow me down when I'm aggressive in nature. I'm gonna help push her a little bit when she's being complacent. It's the craziest thing when you finally figure it out and get back to the origin, right? And so, yeah, to that point, you know, when she met me, I mean, a couple months later, she was pregnant and I was on my way potentially to prison. So, you know, she's been through every iteration of my life, from the streets to corporate to entrepreneurship to, you know, what I would call what I do today is marketplace ministry. And what's interesting about that is you take for granted that they are also changing. It may be representative in different ways, but their appetite is changing. They're evolving. And the truth is, although you may be equally yoked to some degree, you're not evolving at the same rate either, though, because depending on what your purpose and your lot is in life, you're going to be evolving predicated on where you're supposed to be in that certain season of your life. And I just think it's critical in relationships that you check in with one another about that. Right. But and a lot of this is emotional intelligence, emotional awareness, which many times you lack. You don't know. So y'all just coexisting, but y'all not understanding why y'all not on the same sheet of music. And you just think like, oh, we falling out of love. It's like, no, y'all just two different people that ain't met yet. And you still hold on the idea of who that person used to be, and they not this person anymore.
Now that's powerful. That's deep. And so that makes me think about, you know, since she's been through literally every chapter of your life in that regard, do you feel like you would be the same person if she wasn't, knowing that you guys are like opposites attract?
Not even close. I wouldn't be the man I am today if she wasn't in my life. I wouldn't have accomplished all of what I've done if she wasn't in my life. When God designed marriage and he gave us a helpmeet, she has been that emphatically to me, to a point where she put a lot of her appetite and ambition on hold, and unbeknownst to me though, like some of it was verbalized, but other times it wasn't. She just, because she's a peacemaker, she just sat in the fact that I'm gonna keep the peace, let him go build, pursue, subdue, do all the things that he do, and I'm gonna hold back. But I think to some degree she also resented me because of that, because her being a peacemaker and because she's non-confrontational, her holding that stuff in, by the time it came out, it was a problem. And for me, I'm oblivious, and I'm like, well, how am I supposed to read your mind? I don't know. And so, yeah, she has been one of the catalysts, the biggest catalyst next to God, and helping me become these different versions of myself through these different seasons. She's always supported anything that I wanted to do. Like, always have supported anything I wanted to do.
Got it. And so, with you guys being those opposites, what do you see in your daughter, which is a combination of both of you?
A very healthy balance. A very healthy balance. She is the extreme of both of us at the same time. And it's an amazing thing to see, bro. I sensed that me and my daughter relationship was strained at one point, couple years. And it finally came to a head. She was at home one time for Christmas, and I didn't know why she was upset. But I told her, I said, my vow to you is that we gonna go to family therapy, just you and I. Like, let's figure this thing out. I don't know what's going on, but what I do know is that she has a fiance now, and when you marry a person, you marry their baggage. I wanted to make sure that whatever it was that I may have done directly, indirectly, or unbeknownst, that we get out in front of it so that she can heal, so she could be the best version of herself for him going into that next season. And I'm not saying this to be no martyr or nothing. I'm just giving you from a dad's perspective, what I was looking to accomplish in this process. And man, she shared something with me that blew my mind, that came out in therapy, which by God's grace, our relationship is amazing now. We redeemed. And when she was younger, she had this condition called uveitis, where there was inflammation in her eye that caused her at the age of 11 to lose vision in her eye. And we were going to all these different specialists. And during that time, I was still working in corporate America. So one of the treatment plans was that she had to inject herself with like this EpiPen, a Humira, in her leg. And then her mom had to administer this other drug called methotrexate that they give to cancer patients to suppress their immune system to help them take the chemo treatment better. So they were trying to slow her immune system down because the condition she had was an autoimmune deficiency. And so, long story short, on the days that she would have to take her medicine, it was traumatizing, right? Your mom giving you injections, you 11, like, it's a lot to figure out. So I would make sure I hit all the big appointments when we went to see the specialist, which was 2 hours away. And then her local appointments, I would make some of those, and her mom would take the majority of them. And comes out in therapy that during that time in her life, she felt like I was the bad guy.
Wow.
So she had been holding on for this for 10 years, but until we got a referee in the middle of us to talk this through, I never was privy to it. And I don't know that she knew how to articulate it. And I say that to say this, because I know it's entrepreneurs watching this. And I know it's 9-to-5ers watching this. We mistaken the fact that since we're providers, that our family is supposed to just understand that we had to go to work. I'm telling you from a personal experience, that my daughter walked around with trauma for 10 years and associated everything I did as it pertains to work as a bad thing because she needed me in that moment in a different way that I wasn't there. As much as I thought I was present. And we just got to stop believing and buying this notion that we got to go to work to pay bills. We got to do some work to pay bills. And if you could find some work to pay bills and be fully present in your family's life, then that's the work you should be doing.
No, 100%. And that makes me think about a quote, because growing up in an earlier time frame, 90s, 80s, you have this structure where we're learning from our parents how to do things. And you said you had 2 blue collar parents. And so that kind of, gives you that work ethic kind of thought process. But you also did have that, you turn to the streets for some things. And so, tough times create tough men. Tough men create good times. Good times create weak men. Weak men create tough times. It's a vicious cycle that keeps repeating. And so in you having a daughter where she's, I'm assuming, subjected to a better upbringing lifestyle where she may not need to do as much work as you would have had to. How does that balance play out for the growth of an entrepreneurial mindset, or a mindset to still execute at a high level?
Yeah. So one of the things that I was very conscious of was, because my daughter did grow up differently than me and my wife, you know, we've been feeding the homeless on Christmas Eve for the last 9 years in Orlando, just her and I. We go to KFC, we get a bunch of boxes of chicken, we put money inside the boxes, because we don't just want to go down there and just exclusively hand out money. We want people who legitimately want a meal. And after they get that meal, they find out that it's a financial blessing on the inside. And I've been doing that for 9 years to let her see the people that's down there on dope out their mind, letting her see, like, she need to see there's more world to the world than the world we live in.
Yeah.
Right. And I think, she's even said it, like, it's helped to keep her grounded, and it's helped to keep her hungry. And she's right now pretty ambidextrous, because she had a virtual assistant business when she was 18.
Okay.
She took one of my courses, which I made her pay to take the course. I gave her pro bono mentorship.
Yeah.
But when she finally said she wanted to invest in real estate, I'm like, well, show me. Because I've been doing this for 14 years of your life at this time, and you ain't never had an interest. And I'm doing you a disservice if you think you're going to pop your head in and out my office asking me random questions, and that's going to help you get to the goal sooner. So if you serious, you buy this course. It's about to be on sale for Christmas. I'm giving you the inside scoop since you family. And then I'm going to give you pro bono mentorship. And so she did. And she got her first rental property when she was 18. She did a full renovation on it. And she been cash flowing since she was 19, building wealth and collecting residual income. And she now works for a group of doctors in Atlanta, you know, director of marketing, and she's a executive admin to their C-suite. So she ambidextrous in that she's an entrepreneur, and she don't have a problem with punching the clock. Yeah. So as long as punching the clock supports the narrative of what she's in pursuit of. And I respect that about her at 21. Like, that's different.
No, that's deep. And that's, again, the age shift of what wealth is for the Generation Z, I guess they're called now. Well, the age, like, you have 19, 18, 17-year-olds, even earlier than that, teens on YouTube making millions already. For sure. And, you know, with you being in both worlds, what would you say is the biggest pro from doing business 10 years ago versus doing business now?
Definitely the reach. You know, how do guys like us connect if we're not physically in the same place at the same time? Today we are, but the origin of this connection came from something outside of both of our scope, right? So I think the access now is the most powerful tool ever, man. If people can actually get clear about what they want to do, there's so many people out there that can help you do what you want to do, whether it be directly or indirectly. And it's no excuse not to go and pursue the things that you really have inside of you. I think I'm an 80s baby. For us, much of the time we had something inside of us, but we didn't have the tools and the access to bring it out. And so we just displaced those feelings with trying to fill them up with counterfeit, as I talked about earlier. Whereas now, if you're really clear about what you want, you absolutely have access, whether paid or not paid, access to somebody that can help you take that thing from A to Z.
No, absolutely. And in you saying something like that, you know, what, for your business model, the way you have it structured and everything, you know, was your 100K harder than your million?
That's tough. I remember my 10K being the hardest. Like,
what was that?
In the streets, you know what I'm saying? Like, your first 10 is like, right? So that was, I remember that first 10 being hard. The 100, I don't remember that being hard. I don't. Replicating that million was challenging. Yeah, but I think the 10 was the hardest of the three.
Got it. Okay. That's a good perspective to look at it. And in the business of doing the 100, doing the million, you know, what are the biggest myths about real estate that you've discovered over time?
First of all, there's no such thing as passive income in real estate. Unless you're a private investor, because you legitimately are hands off. For people that buy cash flow to say that they're a passive investor, it ain't nothing. Your units won't cash flow if you're passive. At 18 years in, I meet with my property management company every single week. Today was Thursday, 10 a.m. As I was on the road down to Miami, I was on the call with my property management company. I don't miss that. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, nobody is going to take care of your business how you are. Now, that don't mean that you take care of your business every day, but even when you delegate, that you still have to make sure you got your pulse on what's going on, because nobody is going to care as much as you do. And everybody typically collects the check before the owner does.
Got it. And when you have your courses, your coaching for real estate, you know, your masterminds, workshops, all those things, what do you primarily teach people to do?
I teach the biggest, fundamentally, two things that we teach. How to invest remotely, fix and flip wholesale and cash flow, and how to raise capital. Okay. Those are our two areas of focus that I think makes us unique in what and how we do what we do. But the premise of the whole program in our mastermind is to teach you what every tentacle of your business is supposed to be doing. Not for the sake of you doing their job, but for you to be able to hold them accountable to do their job. Because again, the appraiser, the buyer agent, the contractors, the project managers, the title company, everybody get paid before you do. So if they don't execute on the thing that you're paying them for, then you're never going to win in this business. And everybody gets so excited over acquisition, but acquisition is the easiest part. It's the execution that's the struggle.
No, absolutely. And so, you know, I feel like we've entered the part of the podcast where we call this gem drop.
Okay.
And so during gem drop, what happens is if a listener makes it this far into the podcast, we got to give them some gems. And so if somebody, you know, let's treat this as if somebody were to just finish paying you whatever it costs for your coaching or your courses, you know, give them the first few steps and the first few months that you deal with them of the process of what you walk them through.
Sure. So on the real estate side, the first thing that they have to do is build a foundation. They need to understand every person that's on their team, from realtors to contractors. They need to start building that team. And so we give them scripts, not as handcuffs, but as handrails to have the appropriate conversation. People fail to realize just because you heard a podcast or you read a book and you go to try to regurgitate that in a conversation with somebody, at some point they're going to figure out that your level of understanding is shallow.
Yeah.
So we provided conversational scripts that are very direct to let that person know what it is that you expect out of them in this exchange, so that the conversation is less subjective and more objective.
Got it.
Right. So to help them start moving the needle just in having conversation with the right people, speaking the nomenclature and all those types of things. And then after that, we want them to start then taking that data that they're pulling in from said realtors and analyzing deals, right? Because at the end of the day, if you ain't buying property, then you're not a real estate investor. Yeah. Although your LLC may say different, your website and the business cards, all the accoutrements may suggest that you got a business, but unless or until you own some property, you don't have one.
Facts.
So we had them start running reps on analyzing this data, submitting offers, and then going organically through the process. We provide lending resources. They don't have to use them, but we have vendors within our mastermind that provide lending for our students. Because a lot of the time, one of the biggest challenges and conundrums is that when you're starting out, lenders want you to have experience. Well, how do you get experience if they never lend you the money?
Yep.
So we got a workaround for that inside of our mastermind. And then another thing that we do is our team helps them underwrite their deals. For one, so that they're not making bad deals. For two, so that they're not continuously sending lenders bad deals to where now they're losing credibility with the lender. So as they start running reps, they can send their deals over to our team, and we help to be another set of eyes to help them fill in the gaps where they may miss. So, and I should have said at the core of all of that, first establishing where they're trying to go, because everything for us is identifying the goal and then reverse engineering. if they're trying to supplement income, then maybe flipping houses ain't the way for them to go. Maybe it's buying cash flow. If they're just looking for more discretionary money that they can start pivoting into other investments, then maybe flipping and wholesaling is a good route for them to travel. So we give them access to teach them all three so that they're well-rounded as an investor, because different seasons require different strategies. Yep. But we really want to hone in and focus on one initially so that they can start to streamline their path forward.
Got it. Okay. And then what about the coaching?
So on the coach's side, the most important piece is identifying who you want to help, how you want to help them, what's the payoff. We get them very clear on the end result, because everything reverse engineers from the end result once again. So once you get very clear on that, now you know what your messaging needs to be to speak to your specific avatar. You know what your pricing needs to be predicated on the payoff that you can get for that client of yours. You could start to really build because a lot of the time that I've even realized in my coaching business years ago, you can build a coaching business that's serving your people at a super high level, but disserving you and your family at a very high level. Yeah. And a lot of the time we paint ourselves into the square instead of building something that satisfies and stimulates our lifestyle that we aspire, as well as serve our clients at a high level. And there is a system and a process to get to that happy medium. Yeah. And so we help them get clear about the outcome that they desire for both themselves as well as their clients, and then start working on the messaging, the content creation, whether you're going to do organic or you're going to do paid traffic. We get into the sales mechanism, what that looks like. Are you going to do a 2-step sales process or 3-step sales process or 1-call close? Going through the framework of what the sales cycle even looks like, taking a deep dive into fulfillment, understanding like what platforms are you going to build your stuff out on? Are you going to have a course model? What dramatic event are you going to use to even bring this to the marketplace? So get into all the weeds, because I think a lot of the business coaching out there now is very high level. And so people get the essence of what they're supposed to do, but they don't get the specifics of what they need to do to carry it forward. Got it. Which is why people end up with the websites, the business cards, and no money. And it's like, well, what you doing? A lot of the time they don't know what they're doing. So we get into the specificities in every area, from, again, developing the offer, the content creation, the marketing strategies, the sales strategy, the fulfillment strategy, and then after that, the deployment of it all.
Got it. No, that's great. Just understanding that, even how you presented that structure, and me being a mindset coach myself, it's just a huge refresher to hear somebody start off with a system. A lot of people go in tackling the problem head first without structure. And that puts them back in the same position that they came to you with to begin with, because now they become reliant on you instead of having a sustainable business. And they need to learn how to do it for themselves.
100%.
Teach a man how to fish, versus catching the fish for him.
That's right.
And so, no, that's major. What do you say is your favorite book, if you have one?
The Bible one, right? It's the only thing I will read manuscript. Everything else I listen audio. Okay. I'm an audio guy. I hate reading, bro. Always did through school. Because I'm an executor, I would read enough in context to be able to go and pass the test, because that was the game in school. Yeah. But I hate reading. It's a drain for me. So yeah, the Bible one, and then, man, I got a lot of good books I've been liking lately. Atomic Habits is one of them. James Clear. That book is powerful, bro. 10X is easier than 2X. Right. Oversubscribe. Yep. Because everybody got the Rich Dad Poor Dad, you know what I'm saying? Like, everybody, we know those now. Let's talk about some other ones for a sec. And but no, I think Atomic Habits helps to debunk a bunch of social constructs and bad doctrine and ideologies that we've adopted to be true in our lives.
Get rid of those ants.
Get rid of those ants, bro. That's a major one. But that's where the real self-reflection come in. That you can't hide from that book. Like, it's reading your mail for sure.
There's a book that I want to suggest. It's by Daniel Simons and Christopher Chambers.
Okay.
You know, it's called The Invisible Gorilla. You know,
I'm about to write that
and
down.
I have a course that is basically on that, and it's, I wouldn't even call it a course. It's a whole segment of my coaching, but
Okay.
you know what I title that presentation when I do the lesson plans is perception isn't reality. And you know, this is how we relate life to business, because all throughout that book and even in some psychology experiments,
Okay.
you know, 50% of people, they released a video, you might have seen it a while ago, where they ask you to catch the basketball. You know, count how many people or how many times they pass the basketball for players in black versus the players in white. You know, there's two sets of players, and they only want you to pay attention to the players that are passing a basketball in black. Now, through that, it's only maybe like 30 seconds or so. There's a gorilla that comes through the screen and stops right in the middle, beats on his chest, and walks off the other screen. 50% of people that go through this experiment do not see the gorilla.
Stop it, bro.
100% fact. 50% of people do not see this gorilla.
Can I look this video up on YouTube?
Yes, you can.
So if I put in Invisible Gorilla, or that's not, okay.
That's the name.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah,
okay,
Invisible
cool.
Gorilla. You
All
might
right.
see it because I told you about it
Okay,
now,
yeah.
but they have other versions still
Yeah.
that will blow your mind. And they call these, you know, the cognitive tests. And, you know, they have under these the anti-saccade test, they have the Stroop test, they have a lot of these other different tests that go off of like hippocampus and amygdala and all that type of stuff. But you know, this is alarming because it's like, yo, some people are like, what do you mean you don't see that gorilla? And other people are like, I don't see the gorilla. What are you talking about? And this is real life. And so when we present these perceptions isn't reality to business, you know, these are in that book, they have real life cases that have actually happened. Like, you know, cops that were doing a high-speed chase, people from the bank, you know, they split up at the end of a cul-de-sac, and one suspect was hopping the fence, and another cop was chasing him, and other cops mistook the person that was chasing him, because he was an undercover D, for a suspect, and they start beating him. Now another cop literally runs right next to them and continues to chase the suspect, and he catches him. And that cop's like, hey, you didn't see what happened? And he's like, no, I didn't see anything at all. And he actually got fired off of the force because they thought he was withholding information because it was a black cop.
Wow.
And they ran tests on him, and they also show that perception isn't reality. He's not looking for that scene to be happening. He's dialed in on the suspect. He just went for the suspect. He didn't actually see it. And so it starts to explain why some people don't see motorcycles, why some people don't see certain things happening in business. And we're quick to judge other people when they say, it could be something that's right in front of them, but we have to also understand what people are looking for. And so, you know, when I go over this lesson plan, it helps people to understand, what are you looking for in your business to even get to the next level to begin with? Because if you don't find it right up front, you may not have it in your thought process. And so we go through a different series of thought process to get to another level. But that book is amazing.
Bro, I took a note. I'm getting it. I'm getting, like, one thing I've been conscious of the last 2 years is when somebody that I have respect for tells me about a book, I just go buy it. Like, I promise you, by the time I get downstairs in the car, like, I'll be on, like, it's done. Because what I figured out is that, and for me, again, I can only speak for me, I don't find it enjoyable, but it is necessary and requisite in your process of becoming the person to do the thing that God has designed for you to do, to have the stuff that he promised you could have. But many people just give up on the wrong level.
100%.
Because the dark work ain't sexy. The deep work ain't sexy. But this is why also you got so many fly-by-night people on social media that can't withstand the storm, because they roots not deep enough. So when a good gust of wind come through, it blow their tree over. As one of my mentors would say, they focus on a phototropic moment instead of a graveltropic.
No, that's true. And you know, we live in a day and age where you can't push it too much, because we have more fragile egos. And we have more fragile presentation, where when you knock off somebody's armor, you realize they were never ready to fight to begin with. And that's the biggest part of the battle is, you know, a lot of people aren't battle tested. And right now we're at war. We're at war with our minds. You know, I'm a statistics guy. I'm an analytics guy. I know percentages a lot, you know, and even in South Florida, you have in the last decade an increase of 90% of millionaires have increased in West Palm Beach, and 70% of millionaires have increased in Miami. And the entire economy of just Miami, they did $438 billion last year. And so, you know, these are market research things that I ask people when they come to me, and I'm like, do you only know industry research? Or do you understand market research? Do you know what's going on in your actual community? Because these are the people that you're selling to.
Right.
So who's your demographic? You know, who are you looking for? Where's your audience? What are you tapping into?
Yeah.
And these questions need to be answered outside of just your knowledge on your real estate, crypto, credit, whatever you want.
For sure.
And that takes it, you know, to a whole nother level. But
yeah, to your point, that's a really good point. You have to think from the marketplace, not for the marketplace. I was just coaching one of my students. She has a podcast platform, and that she's been monetizing and helping people develop podcasts and such. And the stuff that she get excited about, and even the verbiage in which she was presenting her opportunity to the marketplace, I'm like, don't be clever, be clear. Like, that's not what people identify with. You got to think from the consumer perspective. I know what it means to you, but it really ain't, that don't matter what it mean to you, honestly, because sales is service. Selling products are, I don't care in what capacity, you're serving somebody. So that means that the thing that's important is the thing that's important to them. Everybody tuning to the radio station WIIFM. What's in it for me? And so, you know, what you said is critical, that yes, it's great that you're an innovator. It's great that you got something that you bring in value to the marketplace, but don't think for them, think from them. And you got to understand what they're thinking about so that you can truly assess what their problems are and fix them.
100%. No, man. Brian, this was an amazing interview, you know, got to understand you on a deeper level, and even learn more about, you know, what you have the ability to bestow with others and help others with. You know, you have a gift, you know, how you articulate yourself, how you present yourself. You know, I'm just, you know, thank you for just being here on this podcast. You know, Attractive Mindset, and a lot of people that watch this podcast are beginner people that get into entrepreneurship. You know, there are some veterans, you know, that get into it, and there's people that still figuring it out, and that's okay. You know, a lot of people, because of the digital deluge that goes on, you know, think that they are running out of time. And that is the far thing from the truth. You know, everybody still, if you're breathing on this planet, has time. You know, a different millionaire at a different age bracket is born all the time.
That's right.
You know, and so you have to operate in terms of where you are in life, and don't be subjected to how long it takes you to get there.
Absolutely.
Time is a construct.
Absolutely.
And so, Brian, you know, if you know, people wanted to tap in with you and learn even more about you, you know, deal with some of the business things that you have, you know, where could they do that at?
They could find me at Brian Adamson Official on all platforms, Instagram, YouTube, and also I'd like to give them a free gift if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
So I want to give you guys, I'm gonna give you a copy of my free ebook about investing in real estate remotely. Okay, it's a hot topic. A lot of people want to know the more nuance about it, and so you can go to www.iflipebook.com, iflipebook.com, and get your free copy.
No, absolutely. I appreciate that. You know, I know the audience is gonna love it. You know, they're tapped in, and they like to really just work. And so, you know, appreciate you coming on here, dropping your gems. You know, this is another episode of Attractive Mindset, and it's your host, Mastermind Rich. We're here in the studio, season 2. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. And as we always say, we look good, we live good. Life is good. Talk to us, we talk back, and we out.